How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Everyone's doing well? Yeah. So I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story about the polymath. Now, in order to do this, I need to take you way back, all the way to the age of discovery, to the 17th century. Now, during this time, most of us would have been farmers, planting seeds to feed our family. But at that same time, there was these two bearded gentlemen. Now, Leonardo da Vinci and Galileo. Now, during this time, they were creating the archetype of what we call the polymath. They were nurturing a different seed, and that was the seed of curiosity. And with that, they were not only fueling one passion, but multiple passions, as they spanned multiple discipline areas and multiple industries as they solved the complex problems of their day. Now, right now, the landscape has changed, yes, but the need for the polymath has not. If anything, it's gotten greater. There are more complex problems waiting to be solved. We are now in the information age. And what that means is we have this at our disposal. And with this, we have the world's information at our fingertips. Now, the new polymath, or the Neo Polymath, is being created. And what that means is that during today's time, all these industries are colliding. And so this Neo Polymath sits right at the center, bravely, at the center of the eye of the storm, if you will, in the center of all these industries colliding. Now, what I would say, in order to sit there at the center, you have to go back to your development, back to your childhood, and find the seeds that actually helps you to have the mindset to do that today. Now, what do I mean by that? If you go back again to the 17th century, to philosopher John Locke, he talks about the tabula rasa. And what he's saying there is that in the beginning, we are all a blank slate. And it's throughout our experiences with the environment that our identity is formed and our knowledge base is formed as well. And so let me give you an example of what I mean here. And I'll tell you a story about myself and 4 key seeds that I developed in my childhood in the moments that they were formed. So this is me back when I was 9 years old. Now, first, at 3 years old, I would play chess with my dad. And, we'd use that as a way to bond. And in the beginning, he would always win, as you would assume. I was 3 years old. But it wasn't until I started to look past the pieces on the board, and I started to look at the patterns, and started to get a vision, and start to visualize how the pieces were moving 2, 3, 4 moves ahead, that I was finally able to beat him. It's vision, the first point. The second is that at 6 years old, my dad started to travel 3 weeks out of the month. And obviously, there's no one at home to play chess with, but at that same time, I put a map on my board. And with that, I had a can of push pins. And every time he would travel, I'd put a pin up into the city or the country that he was going to. And when he'd leave, I'd go and hustle and learn about those cities and countries, so then when he came back, we were now bonding over his travels. And just in my room, I was able to travel the world and get a global perspective. Now, at 9 years old, I got very interested in science and math. And the curiosity of what I would have when I'd look up at the stars, and I think, how far are the planets, led me to eventually ask my parents to let me go on a plane alone to Huntsville, Alabama from New Jersey, to travel there, to follow my curiosity, to learn about space travel and go to space camp. And then at 12 years old, when I eventually learned how to play ice hockey, soon after that, my entire family moved to Paris, France. And, discouraged, obviously, that I couldn't play the sport that I had grown to love, but not giving up, I found a translator that helped me find a rink, that helped me get introduced to a coach that let me try out for the team. Now, I made the team, luckily, and that was almost the easy part. What I didn't realize, though, is that I was going to have to adapt and relearn the sport. and adapt to the French style of play, let alone all the culture shock and language barriers that I went through as I learned the language and learned the culture. Now, how many people can really identify with some of these development years and some of these seeds that were developed maybe in your life? Show of hands, yes. But also, we'll all agree that there's some of these seeds that we can identify that we haven't been able to continue to nurture as we got older. Am I right? Now, don't worry about that. I identify with you as well. And Picasso said, every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once you grow up. So you're not alone. But let me show you how I took some of those seeds and actually continued to nurture them throughout my adulthood. And they came back and actually helped to manifest and give me the polymath mindset that I have today. So, soon after school, I became an investment banker. And after 2 years of New York, I moved out to South Africa, to Johannesburg, South Africa. Now, the inner office transfer was probably the easiest part. And what I didn't realize, though, is that I was going to have to adapt and relearn finance in the sub-Saharan African marketplace. I was a long way from home when I found myself in a due diligence data room in Dar es Salaam. Now, after 4 years of banking, which is enough for anybody, right? I got this voice in my head, and that voice was a curiosity for what else was out there. Eventually, that voice got so loud, I had to listen to that, and I quit. And what that actually led me on was a year-long journey of trying to find what my passion was, and it took trial and error. It wasn't easy. Originally, I thought I was going to stay in South Africa, and so that caught me sleeping on my friends' couches and floors, and on those blow-up mattresses that when you wake up, you realize you're actually on the floor. Eventually, my visa ran out, and I came back to the US. And after that, I went on a trial and error when I thought I was going to maybe be a teacher on one side, so I shadowed a friend who was teaching. On the other side, I thought maybe I wanted to be a movie producer, and so I took some film classes. And heck, I even learned Portuguese and thought I was going to move to Brazil to expand a company out there. And it wasn't until I bumped into a startup where we built a successful business. Now, fast forward, and I find myself in Los Angeles, and I'm working at one of the largest talent agencies in the world, and both in entertainment marketing and also international corporate development, covering Brazil, Russia, India, China, Korea, Japan, and South Africa, of course. Now, it wasn't until, though, I bumped into a Grammy Award-winning rock band. And it was over lunch that we discussed the vision for what we thought the future of the music industry was going to be. Now, musicians were going into fashion and film and technology. And eventually, over the course of that lunch, we decided to embark on that collective vision. And I joined them, and we did that. So, as you can see, the last is global perspective. And I think by now you can guess that that was something that has been around my entire life. I have had the opportunity to live and work all over the world. And now even standing here today with you in Rotterdam, Rotterdam was nothing but a pin on the map, on the board at my house when I was a child. So it kind of makes sense now. What I didn't realize, though, looking in hindsight, it makes sense. But what I didn't realize is that I was actually nurturing and watering those seeds throughout the course of my career. And so now, as I work at Viacom and I run an innovation lab, and we look at the future of the entertainment space, I'm now looking at entertainment through multiple lenses as a Neo Polymath. We're going into places like chatbots. We're thinking about that space. At the same time, we're looking at mixed reality. And we're also looking at new categories that haven't been developed yet, like esports. What I'm saying is that it's not just me who's been able to do this. If we look back at some of the greats and the innovators and disruptors of our day, we'll realize if we're able to go back into their childhoods, just imagine when those moments were developed and how they've nurtured them. Richard Branson and his curiosity that now takes him to space. Kanye West, who's now going across both music and fashion and art. Or Nuri Oxman, a professor at MIT Media Lab who converges with art and architecture and biology and computer science. Or just imagine the founders of Tiltbrush and them sitting firmly at the center of both creativity and technology, allowing people to draw within a 3D space or virtual reality world. Now, our world is full of soil. And it's these seeds that we develop as a youth that we then learn to plant later as in our adult life. And where we plant them is what allows us to be the disruptors and innovators in our respective industries. We all have the opportunity to be Neo Polymaths. Why not? Why not seize that opportunity? But in order to do that, we must sit firmly at the center of all these industries colliding. We must follow not just one passion, but multiple passions. Now, if I leave you with anything today, I would say to look back and find those seeds. Look at those moments in your childhood when they were developed, and in your adult life today, just add water. Thank you.